All right, so Dad, we're back for another episode of the podcast today. Um,
Yeah,
Today we are talking about Lightning McQueen and Doc Hudson from the movie
cars.
Cars, one of the
Yeah,
greats.
another episode of Fathers and Sons.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe a little bit of a detour from biological fathers and sons, but we're going to talk a little bit about a father figure today in Doc Hudson.
Yeah, we've been
We thought,
excited about this one for a while, so this will be a good one.
yeah, this is River, my daughter's favorite movie, maybe my favorite Disney Pixar movie too. It's a good one.
Yeah.
So we figured we'd start with a quick scene from the movie.
What are you doing with those old racing tires? Come on, Doc. Drive. Wow. You're amazing. What are you doing? Doc, wait!
All right. So I don't know how much that you got, Dad. I don't know if you could see.
That's all
Uh,
right. I saw it in my mind's eye, and
yeah.
I could hear it.
So for all those not watching, this is the scene, the moment in Cars where Lightning McQueen stumbles upon Doc Hudson about to try the dirt track, about to race on the dirt track that Lightning has been trying for the entire movie and hasn't been able to do, hasn't been able to complete. Doc doesn't know he's there, and he starts up his engine, and it's a moment of like reconnection, I feel, with himself. Um, and he just takes the course, in a way that looks totally effortless. But then he's angry. He's mad that Lightning saw him do this really great run.
Well, and
So
there's a part of the run. It's important to the plot because he takes a turn, a particular turn that Lightning, who's a much younger, more technologically advanced race car, and he's able to take this left turn in a way that Lightning has not been able to master. And in fact, he executes what we call a drift. He's able
mhm,
to go left by going right. He's able to drift into this turn. It's something that Lightning doesn't know how to do. As a younger, more technologically advanced race car who's always been on a very sticky track with very advanced racing tires, he's never had to race on dirt. He's never learned how to drift. And so this is
yeah,
sort of wisdom of the ancients. And I think this is one of the themes we'll probably talk about during this podcast is sort of Doc as a father figure and teaching Lightning McQueen this wisdom. And, does Lightning pick it up? Is he able to kind of humble himself and learn from this older race car?
yeah, yeah, definitely. So brief recap here for those who haven't seen this movie. It's the story of this hotshot race car, right, who ruins this small town's road on his way to a big race in California. He tears up the road through a series of uh, Disney style hijinks, and then he has to stay and he has to stick around in this little town, and they make him fix the road. And along the way, I mean, he's so frustrated at first. He just wants to get to his race. It's the biggest race, the biggest event in this. I mean, I imagine in their whole universe because they're all cars. Um, but along the way, he kind of learns some lessons about humility, relationships, love, and in the fashion of the movie, the importance of slowing down before he then heads off to the race. And there's kind of a reckoning between the world he left and the new person that he's become. So like you said, there were kind of three themes that I wanted to discuss today. We can talk about other things too. Really, there's two major ones, and then we can get to the third one if we have time. But the first is this idea of grounding through wisdom and the importance of a father or a father figure or just parents, right? In helping the younger generation stay grounded. We've talked a little bit about the analog of the Icarus and Daedalus story, although this one has a much happier ending. But wisdom of the previous generations to keep the younger generations from making foolish mistakes. And then the second theme I wanted to talk about was kind of the flip side of that. So the first one is Lightning's perspective, but we're also going to talk a little bit about Doc Hudson and the regenerative power of your relationships with children or with younger generations, the power of your kids to rekindle the joy and wonder in your life, and how kids can kind of take you from being bitter to excited without them even trying. And then maybe we'll get a little bit into that, a little deeper into that, and talk about wounded fathers and the importance of kids reminding you of yourself. Um, but yeah, those are kind of the three things I wanted to touch on. If you have anything to add there, we can do that as well.
Well, let's just make sure everybody knows who Doc Hudson is.
Yeah.
Doc in the plot is sort of I don't know if he's the mayor, he's like the judge or the justice of the peace. He's a doctor in the
Mhm.
in the plot. He's like a mechanic,
Yeah.
and he's kind of a crusty old Hudson. Hudson is a brand of car. I mean, there's no Hudsons anymore, but he's an old Hudson Hornet car, and he's kind of a curmudgeonly old car in this little town called Radiator Springs, where Lightning McQueen ends up. And so he's sort of the authority figure in the town, and he's the one who sentences Lightning McQueen to community service to fix the road. As Lightning is kind of fixing the road, he's the one who is keeping Lightning in the town and develops a little bit of a relationship with Lightning as Lightning does his community service. And there's a cast of other characters that he learns from as well, including this Portia, this pretty, I don't know how Disney does it, like how they make a car pretty, but they do. Like this pretty young lawyer from the city named Sally, who's a Portia.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mater, who's the tow truck, and he's kind of a rusty old tow truck. And there's like other characters, Ramon, the painter, who's like a lowrider, and Flo, that's an old, like a Cadillac, 57 Cadillac. Anyway, there's a cast of characters, and you alluded to things that Lightning McQueen learns from these different characters about relationships and about values, which I think is an important part of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. So when the movie starts out, it's a race. It's the Piston Cup. It's Lightning's dream. He's a rookie. It's the last race of the season, and he's poised to win it all. And he kind of goes into it selfishly, you could say. He's cocky. He's on a hot streak, and he decides not to replace his tires. And so he pulls in, has his pit crew give him gas, and then he races off. And they're so mad at him. They're furious. And
he has no pit boss.
He has no pit boss. Yeah.
Yeah. He has no, like, what do they call it? His crew chief. He has no
crew chief. You got it. Uh-huh. And so he is kind of taking these risks, gambling, but he's doing it all on his own. He's deciding, making all the decisions. And he gets to the last lap of the race, and he's way ahead of everybody, and his tires pop. Yeah. And he has to crawl across the finish line. And because of that decision, two other cars catch him right at the end, and it's a three-way tie. Now, one of the cars that catches him is the King, and he's blue. He's got a spoiler. He looks a little older than the other cars, but he's kind of the reigning champ. He's old. It's his last season. And the King comes up to him at the end of that race. This is still at the beginning. And to me, this is when Lightning's character gets established. And he says to him, "Hey, buddy, you're one gutsy racer." And Lightning's so like happy. He's like, "Oh man, hey, Mr. the King, thank you."
The
And then
king
the king says,
recognizes my
yeah,
greatness.
yeah, exactly. And then the king goes, but you're stupid.
Yeah.
And Lightning's confused and he's like, what are you talking about? And the king goes, this ain't a one-man deal,
You
kid. You
can't
need to
do it
wise
alone.
up. You got to get a good
Yeah.
crew chief and a team. And he starts telling him all the things he needs. And Lightning's response at the beginning of the movie is not to take the advice to heart, but he
Right.
starts daydreaming about
Blah,
taking the
blah.
king's place. Yeah.
Right.
So we get it from the very beginning that he's just like, his problem is he is
He's arrogant.
selfish.
He's
arrogant.
arrogant,
Exactly.
hubris. And this is the parallel to the Daedalus and Icarus story, right? I mean,
Yep.
in that Greek myth, Icarus is a young, innovative, arrogant hero who makes himself a set of wings, right? And he
Right.
builds these wings with wax and feathers, and he flies. He learns to fly. And this is not something man is meant to do, but he does it sort of against the wishes of the gods. His father, Daedalus, counsels him not to be prideful and not to fly too close to Helos, which is the sun, because it's dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he does not listen to that advice. So very similar to the advice that the king is giving him. Hey, you can't do this alone. Try to take a little bit more moderate path. But Icarus does not listen to that advice. He flies too close to the sun, which melts the wax on his wings, and he crashes into the ocean. I think, if I remember, I can't remember all the details of the story.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of versions of it, I think, but in the main, when he crashes into the ocean, he dies. He drowns.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's the parallel with the Icarus myth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but in this story, it's different. There's a different ending. It's a happy ending. And so I've been thinking a lot about like what the difference is. And you had pointed out when we talked before this episode that there's a huge emphasis in this movie on relationships. So there's a second scene sort of at the climax of the movie where Lightning McQueen finds out that Doc Hudson was a famous race car, finds out that he won the Piston Cup multiple times. And he asks him he says, how could a car like you quit at the top of your game? And Doc turns to him and is just furious. He's like got this cold rage. And he says, you think I quit? And he shows Lightning this exhibit of his, he crashed. He had this moment where he totally destroyed. And then he says to Lightning, he says, they quit on me. When I finally got put back together, I went back expecting a big welcome. And you know what they said? They said, your history. Moved right on to the next rookie standing in line. There was a lot left in me, and I never got a chance to show them. And then Lightning McQueen is like, well, I'm not them. I don't know why you're mad at me about this. And Doc's like, well, hey, when is the last time you cared about anything except yourself? And I think this is the key difference between the story of Icarus and the story of Lightning McQueen, is that Lightning takes that to heart and he builds the kind of relationships that he needs to learn that lesson.
That's right.
The lesson of pride. You had mentioned those other characters. I mean, he gets a best friend, Tow Mater, falls in love with the Porsche, and he has Doc. He has this father figure who not only like gives him advice, but has lived through it and can be, an example of what to avoid.
That's right. One other thing I think he does, you mentioned tires at the beginning, and I was thinking about that. The kind of tires became a symbol running through the whole story. Mm-hmm. He refused to change his tires in the first race, and that was what kept him from winning, right? And there are these characters. There's Luigi, and I can't remember the name of the little forklift.
It's Luigi and Guido, yeah.
Luigi and Guido.
And they're Italians. They don't speak any English. Well, so Luigi does, but Guido doesn't speak any English. He's just this little Italian forklift. Yeah.
And they have this little tire shop in Radiator Springs, and their dream is to put tires on a real race car. They really want to put it on a Ferrari, but they're okay with putting it on Lightning McQueen.
Yeah.
But throughout the story, they just want to put some new tires on a real race car, right? And so through the story, Lightning McQueen then gets a new set of tires from Luigi at the end.
That's great. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
And so he learns to ask for help. right? It's not just that he learns to take advice and he learns that he needs relationships. He learns that he needs people, right? You can't do it alone. It's not a one-man show. So that symbol of the tires, I think, becomes something that we all, can learn from. We all need tires. We all need somebody in our corner. We all need somebody, to scratch our back. We all need to help people, and we all need to be able to accept help in our lives.
Yeah. And I'll maybe throw one more thing in there about the tires. The tires they put on him when he goes back at first are white wall tires.
So good.
Right?
Oh my gosh, so good.
And
Grandpa Bailey would be so happy.
Yeah. But to Lightning, like he doesn't even, I don't think he really even knows about white wall tires. And there's a moment where he's like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" And Guido's like, "Yes, you will listen to me about this. I know tires."
Yeah.
And when Lightning goes back, everybody at the stadium's like pumped that he's got these white wall tires on. So it's not just about, like asking for help and accepting help. Uh it's reneging on your hubris, on the pride that we talked about at the beginning. Like Lightning has to recognize that he doesn't know tires,
Yeah.
and submitting to the knowledge of others. And he does it. So this is great. I mean, it's kind of shepherded by Doc, but he does have to make the decisions himself. And then the great thing is that the people in those relationships actually become more important to him than winning the race.
That's right. Yeah. Tell what kind of happens at the end.
Yeah, so the end of the movie, he makes it to the Piston Cup, and there's a great kind of montage of the race where he applies some of the lessons he learns. He gets knocked off the course and he drifts because Doc taught him how. He drives backwards. Mater taught him how to do that.
Rear view mirrors.
Yeah. And then at the end, the king crashes, and he's just roughed up. I mean, he looks terrible. And there's a scene that flashes in Lightning's mind of Doc in the same position. And Lightning stops at the finish line before crossing. And he lets the third car, who's Chick Hicks, this kind of, I mean, we don't have to talk about him today, but he's the worst. But he lets Chick Hicks pass him.
Big Chick Hicks.
And Lightning backs up and pushes the king across the finish line. Yeah. So not only does he could have won the race, and it was because he took his friend's lessons to heart. Doc comes in and acts as his crew chief, and we'll get to that in a minute. And Guido is there as his whole pit crew. So one guy. There's a great scene there too. He takes the advice, and because he does, he's going to win. But then at the very end, he chooses people over winning. He chooses to go back and push the king across the finish line.
Very moving.
Yeah, it's great. So this I think is a good segue into Doc's problem. Doc is bitter, right? He is just he's lost his faith. He's forgotten about the beauty in life and in racing. And a big part of that is that the same thing that happens to the king happened to him. He crashed, and like we said earlier, when he tried to go back, he was rejected. Nobody was there for him. So there's a scene where Lightning discovers that Doc is the Hudson Hornet, and he asks him to show him his tricks. And Doc's like, I already tried that. I've been trying to do that. Doc had been trying to kind of teach him some things. And Lightning says, "And you won the championship 3 times. Look at all those trophies." And Doc says, "You look, all I see is a bunch of empty cups." I think that this is the same scene for Doc as the one we talked about at the beginning with Lightning and the King. It's setting up what Doc's problem is. He's given up on that life, at least. He has other things he cares about, but he's embittered. He has lost his passion. He's lost the vision that he had as a young racer. I haven't been a dad as long as you have, so maybe you can speak to that. But I think that this is a common thread for people the older they get, that we lose our sense of wonder. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a risk, and it is something that I would not want to judge the Doc Hudson character, too harshly for, because one of the things you're trying to do as a father is protect people, and that seems to be the character's motivation. It's not that he's a bad guy; he's trying to protect those people, those cars. They're cars; they're not people. Yeah, he's trying to protect those those characters in Radiator Springs from the kind of arrogant East Coast, West Coast, fancy city people that victimized him, that he saw as victimizing him. He's trying to protect Sally and Mater and Flo and Ramon and, you know, those characters in that little town from being mistreated the way he felt he was being mistreated. And that's what he's trying to do. And that's why he's so antagonistic toward Lightning and wants him just to fix the road and get out of town. Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a defensive mechanism, but in the process, he's closed off his heart. And so when he says, I tried to give you the benefit of my advice, not really. What he tried to do is push him away. And it was really the other characters in the story that taught Lightning McQueen those lessons. However, he did come around. And I think this is something that we've talked about on the podcast pretty much every time. Every episode we've done has been this restorative power of children, of those bonds. And whether it's your biological children or these young people that come into your life and that love you unconditionally, there's power there. And, you know, the fact that Lightning McQueen looked up to him and saw value in him and idolized him and saw value there had that effect on him. And he made the right choice and he came out to California and volunteered to be his crew chief. And that was a pivotal moment for Doc Hudson. It wasn't just an empty cup for him after that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll call us back to the scene that we talked about at the beginning. There's this dirt racetrack, and at a certain point in the movie, Doc challenges Lightning to a race and says, if you can beat me at this race, you don't have to fix the road. I'll do it. You can go to your race. Lightning's like, well, I got this. Of course. Easy.
And so they go. An old broken down car.
Yeah. And Doc doesn't even start up his engine. He just watches, and Lightning takes off, and there's a turn, and it's on dirt, right? Like you said, there's a turn where Lightning doesn't know how to drift. He tries to turn, and he flies off the edge of a cliff and down into a bunch of cactus. He gets all beat up, and Mater's got to fish him out. It's a good scene as well.
Does River think that's a funny scene?
Oh, she loves it. It's her favorite. Yeah. But anyway, later in the movie, Doc goes back to this racetrack, and there's maybe a little bit of context. Lightning's been trying this track like dozens of times. Every time at the end of the day, when he's finished with a section of the road, he tries to go do the track again. And they don't say this explicitly, but to me, this is a moment where Doc sees Lightning and like starts to remember something.
That's right.
You know, he smells the dust in the air.
That's right.
And he hears the tires on the gravel, and he says,
That's right.
I remember what that felt like.
Well, and his view of Lightning McQueen also changes because he sees Lightning as more than just a stuffed, you know, paint job. He sees his work ethic, and he sees that he is willing to put in the time and the effort to learn something new. And he's not just arrogant.
Right. Yeah. So Doc goes down there and he starts up his engine, and we showed this at the beginning, but his engine starts out, the smoke coming out his exhaust is black and old, and the engine sounds kind of beat up, but then it starts to purr, and he takes off, and it's beautiful, like the way he does this turn, and he accomplishes it. And it reminded me of the scene do you remember the movie Hook?
Yeah.
A long time ago. There's a scene, right, where Peter Pan is back in Neverland, but he's an adult, and he doesn't remember it. He doesn't remember Neverland. Yeah. His kids get kidnapped by Captain Hook because Captain Hook wants Peter Pan to come back.
Dustin Hoffman is Captain Hook.
Yeah, such a good movie. But Peter Pan can't do anything. He can't fly. He can't sword fight. He can't do anything. And so the way that his Lost Boys get him to remember is they have a food fight.
That's right.
They have a food fight with him. And Peter, at first, he's like kind of mad about it. And then he throws some food and he remembers himself. And all of a sudden he can fly again. And there's that famous line, one of the kids goes, yeah, he can crow. He can sword fight.
Yeah.
And one of the kids goes, you're doing it, Peter. You're playing with us.
Yeah.
And this scene for Doc Hudson, I mean, it's not exactly the same because he's still mad, he's still bitter, and later in the movie, he's the reason he calls some reporters who come and find Lightning McQueen. So he's the reason Lightning leaves Radiator Springs. But it reminds me of that because it's a moment where this old person who's lost the faith remembers what it was like to do that. Has that kind of vicarious experience,
Yeah.
and it triggers something in him that then
Well,
lets him come back.
it's a recovery process, and
Yeah, yeah,
that's where it begins. And it takes, I mean, it's just like life. It takes a long time, and it can take, it's not necessarily linear. It can take some starts and stops.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then at the end, right, and I'll just throw this in there. Both of them both Doc and Lightning have their kind of moment of reconciliation. Not necessarily I mean, they do with each other, but also with themselves. Lightning, like we said, he gives up the victory to focus on the people, and Doc sees him do that. Doc comes as his crew chief and sees that race cars can be good people too,
Yeah.
and sees him push the king across the finish line.
And what's interesting about that moment is that Lightning recognizes that it is just an empty cup, but in a
Yeah.
way that's different from the cynical view that Doc Hudson, made that same comment. What he meant at the end, he says, that's an old race car told me one time, it's just an empty cup, meaning there are things more important. And those are relationships and love, the feeling he had toward Doc, the feeling he had toward the other racers, and the kind of the spirit of being a race car.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. You and I both really enjoy the podcast Econ Talk with Russ Roberts. And one of my favorite things he talks about is how nuanced most things are, that there's almost never one answer. And in this, I mean, it's the same. It's, in some ways, the cup is super important. It's important to follow your passions and to love things and to find beauty in racing, but it's also more important to love people and to, have them as your priority. So both things can be true. Now, I know that there was maybe one last thing we wanted to talk about, and I thought I'd leave this to you, but we maybe just wanted to throw one other thing in there about our family. I mean, this movie, the reason we chose to do it is, I think, because at least for me, I have some really great memories with my grandpa, your dad, watching this movie.
Yeah.
Like when he was 65, sitting on his couch and watching this movie. And it maybe was a similar thing. It was a reminder of the things that he found beautiful in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. I mean, I guess this is maybe a bit of a postscript, isn't it?
Yeah.
My dad, Dan Bailey, and we're going to probably have a couple of opportunities to talk a little bit about our own family, and we won't go into too much detail, but this was, I think, probably my dad's favorite Disney movie and one of his favorite movies of all time. And the depiction, not just of the car culture, my dad was a hot rodder, a low rider from Southern California, and was a car guy, worked on cars, but also the depiction of Route 66. And for those who have not seen the movie Cars, I imagine most people who listen to this will have seen the movie, but the old view of Route 66 as the mother road and kind of a cultural icon in the United States of stitching America together, and series of communities across the United States, all the way, from Chicago all the way to Los Angeles, was really important to him. And one of the things he wanted to do before he died was to drive Route 66 in one of his old cars. He had an old 1956 Buick Special, which my sister and her husband still have. In fact, today, May 3rd, the date we're recording this, is the date of an annual Dan Bailey Memorial Car Show in Logandale, Nevada, that they do in his community, commemorating my dad. And they drove that car out to that car show today. But he always had the dream to drive a car the old Route 66 route, which he never got to do. You and I, well, our family has driven, parts of that route, and it's a really wonderful thing. But so that's one of the reasons that movie Cars is special to us. And just the idea of a sentimental depiction of a lost America.
Yeah.
That the movie depicts, which I kind of like. So
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I doing some research for this episode. I mean, this doesn't really touch on the relationship side of things, the fathers and sons side of things, but one of the great things about this movie is it's a reminder that sometimes it's not worth it to give up good experiences for convenience. And
Yeah.
I think it's just it's not something that like you may necessarily need to adopt as the central mantra of your life, but it's okay to slow down.
It's an important debate. There is a line in Cars, where they Sally and Lightning McQueen go on a drive, and it's romantic, and they drive up into the hills, and they're looking out over the valley, and they see Radiator Springs in the foreground, and then they see the Interstate 40 in the background. The interstate is a straight line, and Sally makes a comment. The road used to move with the curves of the land, and now it's a straight line, all to save 10 minutes of driving. Well, that's a bit of, it's not actually true. It isn't saving just 10 minutes of driving. I mean, the US interstate system is a marvel of engineering, and it is one of the reasons that, our economy is so vibrant. And so, I'm not a Luddite. I believe in economic growth, and I believe in, that much of our well-being and our prosperity comes from innovation. And I'm not about living in the past, but I do agree that we should be thoughtful in the policy choices that we make. Sometimes we have to be thoughtful about what we give up, and not everything can be tallied on a spreadsheet. A work of art like Cars does raise, I think, important questions about what we do give up, elements of culture and community. I think we do have to think about those things, and I think the movie does make those points in a very powerful way.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that's probably a good place for us to stop for today. But to all those listening, thanks for joining us for another episode of Fathers and Sons. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.